Hey guys, welcome. Today I would love to share with you some practical ways on how to use Sigilmagick to protect your home. In the last video I did like this, I showed you ways on how I like to use sigils for personal protection. But today I want to share some ways I found work best to use sigils to protect your space, your home or your property. So one of the first things I want to share is my way on how I protect my apartment. I own 2 olive trees, which are named Oliver and Olivia, and these are my protectors of my space in my apartment. Both Oliver and Olivia know that they watch over my home, but I still designed 2 sigils for each of them to amplify their power and give them a very specific job description, you could say, to specifically define what they're supposed to do. I painted both of the sigils onto the bark with watercolor to not damage the tree. I personally love to use trees for protection. Each tree has a unique character, you could say, and each tree species has different magical properties, of course. I would highly suggest to search for trees that are native in your area. I live both in Greece and Germany, and the climate difference is so big that half of my plant system needed to change. In Greece I used olive trees for the most part as my main protector and as the protector of my property, like I'm doing in my apartment here back in Germany, because I wanted to take a part of Greece with me back home. In Germany, however, I like to use hazel, and my parents have a beautiful hazel tree in one of our gardens. I decided to use this hazel tree to protect my parents' property. I know this tree for my whole life and watched it grow with me through the years, so I had no trouble designing a personal sigil for her. I decided to use watercolor again to not damage the tree. I know that this won't hold for too long because of our climate and heavy rains, but I saw this as an opportunity to renew and re-bless the protective sigil after a certain amount of time. I don't like the idea of carving sigils or symbols into trees because it's not only damaging for the tree, but there's also the possibility that the sigil outdates itself without any possibility of changing or adapting the sigil. My sigil takes everyone who lives in my parents' home into account, and this easily changes, and I want to be able to adjust the sigil accordingly. The next method would be to carve or paint a protective sigil onto the walls or into the walls of your home. Please do not do this if you are not the owner of the property. I asked my parents if I could carve a protection sigil into one of the bricks at the back of the house, and since I'm not in the broom closet and my parents are very accepting of my practice, they didn't mind. If you cannot ask the owner of the property or get a no in response, don't worry, there are plenty of other lovely ways on how to protect your space that are less permanent and easy to move or change if you need to. You can also, of course, use paint if you don't have brick walls, but for the area my parents live in, all the old farmhouses are made out of brick. For this project I just took a nail, a hammer and this tool thingy which I don't know the name of, and carved the sigil into one of the lower bricks so no one would ever be able to notice it. I know this doesn't look like much or aesthetically pleasing, but it doesn't have to be. That's not its purpose. The purpose of this sigil is to protect all the inhabitants that live in this house. Another easy way to protect your home is to seal all the entrances. I personally use water to paint my protective sigils onto my windows. It dries very quickly, is completely hidden, and altogether super simple. I cleanse the water beforehand and bless it, and then I just use my finger to paint the sigil onto the window. Another method I used a lot when I was a bit younger was to paint my sigils onto a piece of paper and hide them all around the house. I had specific sigils to protect the property, which I would hide outside. I also had sigils to protect everyone who lived inside, which I would also hide outside. Most of the time I would hide the sigils inside something like I'm doing here. My parents' old farmhouse gives countless opportunities to do so, or I would paint them underneath objects like stones, potted plants, or any garden decor I could get my hands on. In my own home, I have specific protectors my mom made for me who watch over my plants, space and me, and I just put sigils underneath them. I do remember my first magical symbols I would hide in my old bedroom. Back then I didn't know how to create sigils. I used the protective symbols I knew. And even after all these years, I leave them there because I feel like they feel at home where they are and I don't want to disturb that. In my own apartment, I don't need to hide my craft whatsoever, and I have little notes with sigils in every corner of my house. One of my absolute favorite ways to use sigils and magic in general is through art. Surprising for an art witch, I know. This is a little sneak peek into another art witchcraft video I'm working on at the moment, but I wanted to include it here as well because the entire art piece is one big protection spell. I'm using the black on black method for my sigil, meaning I'm painting my sigil in the same color like I do the background, so you cannot see it if you don't know what you're looking for. To paint my sigil, I'm using this Palo Santo piece I have left over. I burn it and draw the sigil with the charcoal it creates. Please be super careful if you're working with fire and inflammable things and have some safety precautions ready just in case. The second sigil I'm drawing onto my art piece is black on black again, but this time I'm using normal ink because I want this sigil to work more in the background of the first one. I won't explain what exactly I'm doing here since it's a part of an upcoming video. But I have found that combining Sigilmagick with artmagick is one of the easiest and most powerful ways how I personally can use my craft and my practice in my everyday life, but also in more elaborate and big spells. So this would conclude my tips on how to practically use Sigilmagick to protect your home and space. I hope I could inspire you to try one of these methods and bring more beautiful sigils into your craft. If you don't know how to create sigils, don't worry. I have a whole playlist discussing different ways on how to create sigils and find a way that perfectly works for you. So I hope I see you soon. Bye bye!